you is not an argument. Now, the reality is that gender dysphoria is a serious and tragic disorder. Those suffering from gender dysphoria, which in its non-politicized definition means the persistent belief that you are a member of the opposite sex, they have a tragically high suicidal ideation and depression rate. That suicidal ideation rate remains tragically high after surgical and hormonal treatment. And the mental health problems associated with gender dysphoria remain extremely damaging, even in particularly, except that's inarticulate. Okay, two quick things. One, you is not an argument. And two, no thanks, I'm not interested. The mental health problems associated with gender dysphoria remain extremely damaging, even in particularly accepting societies. But suffering from a mental disorder does not mean that your underlying sex has actually changed, any more than believing that you're Napoleon Bonaparte makes you Napoleon Bonaparte, or, less flippantly, believing you are too fat when you are actually underweight, as anorexics do, makes you actually too fat. Transgender activists make an objective claim about reality based on subjective internal feelings. That is not sustainable. What's more, transgender activists demand that you go along with all of this and that you abandon reason, biology, physics, because we have to go back in time. If you now consider yourself a transgender person, we have to pretend you were never a member of your original biological sex. Elliot Page was always Elliot Page, not Ellen Page. One of the stars of Juno, it turns out, is a man who was pregnant at the time, except that's anybody who saw the movie knows that that was Ellen Page, not Elliot Page. But if you mention Elliot Page and the original name of Elliot Page, Ellen Page, this is dead naming, and you're supposed to pretend that Elliot Page was actually the star of Juno. Now, here's the thing. Gender dysphoria is extremely rare by the statistics. According to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, 5th edition, which is the gold standard for mental health care, those who had received a diagnosis of gender identity disorder or transsexualism and were seeking hormone treatment and or surgery represented just 0.005 to 0.014% for males and 0.002 to 0.003% for females. But transgender identification is now rising extraordinarily rapidly. One 2021 study now suggests that the rate of transgender identification among urban youth in the United States may be 9 in 100. So we went from individuals per tens to hundreds of thousands of people to 9 in 100, according to particular studies. And of course, Gallup polls now show that where members of the older generation, people born before 1945, identify as LGBTQ at a rate of 0.8%, people who were born between 1997 and 2003 identify as LGBTQ at 20.8%, which is an extraordinarily high number. Now, this is not because a vast number of more people are suffering from gender dysphoria. It's because transgenderism and the belief that you are a member of the opposite sex is a social contagion. It is pressed forward by the media, by parents who are engaged in Munchausen by proxy, and by teens who imitate one another on social media.